All right. So I know a few of my classes we got up to the point where we had matched up the faces yesterday, but that's what I'm going to do here to start. And then I'm going to show you guys a few tools on how to actually blend your Mona together. So the first thing that we want to do is after we've cut our person's face out, we're going to make this adjustment over here in our layer menu. There's an option that's called opacity. And right now it is set to 100%. That means I can fully see this image. If I were to turn this down, what that's going to do is turn down the visibility of my image, basically allowing me to have something that's more transparent. And the reason why I want this to be transparent is because I'm going to use it to line up our faces. Now, when you guys start to actually line these up, you want to be able to stretch these wide and tall separately. If you're unable to do that, if it's stretching like this, it's because this little link right here, it's called maintaining aspect ratio or common scaling, that is on. So you'll have a little W for width and H for height. Just turn that off, and then you can move it separately, wide and tall. So the first thing that I want to line up, I want to line up the eyes. So I'm going to line up my person's eyes, so Bill Murray here, with Mona's eyes. You'll see you kind of hit this sweet spot where they both get dark together. And after I've lined their eyes up, what I want to do is line up their mouths, kind of the middle of their mouths. You'll have to kind of work back and forth between the two until you find you've reached kind of a good blend there. And a good way to tell if you've done a nice job of this is to come over here and mess with your opacity again. Turn it all the way down and then slowly turn it up. And if you feel like you have a nice smooth transition as you slowly turn it up, then you've done a nice job. Okay. And when you're done with all that, make sure that you've set your opacity back to 100%. So the next adjustment that we need to make is we need to get our colors to match up. We want it to make it look like this picture from the 20th century matches up with this older painting from Da Vinci here. That's these kind of yellow, these very warm tones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to Image, and I'm going to select Adjustments. Now, when it's all said and done, we're going to work with a few different ones of these options, but we're going to stay within image adjustments. The first one that we're going to use is color balance. So color balance is going to give you basically these three separate sliders, and each of these sliders, you'll see that if I drag my little cursor in the middle one way or another, it's going to add more of the color on either side of the slider. So I want to kind of increase the different colors that I see back here on my painting. So I want to increase the yellows, probably the reds, and maybe even a tiny bit of green. Now this does not have to be perfect after this step. Okay, I'm just trying to push this in the correct direction here. So when I'm happy kind of with the general start I have, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. The next adjustment that I want to make is brightness and contrast. So basically, if your person feels brighter than Mona, you're going to lower that. And I typically always will boost your contrast. I'll always turn it up. Okay, and if your person was darker, you would just turn your brightness up. And typically, I just will kind of work back and forth between those two until I feel like I really have a pretty accurate reflection of Mona, her skin tones. Final thing that I'm going to do here is I'm going to begin my blending process. So to blend, well, first of all, there's several different ways that you can blend, and we're going to talk about a few different ways throughout the rest of the quarter. But for this project, we're actually going to use our eraser. Let me take my settings back to normal. So normally when you use your eraser, you have a solid circle. And when you click and drag over stuff, it's just going to cut out a solid chunk anywhere that you drag your eraser. Okay. That's all well and good, but for this, we actually want to use our eraser to kind of fade our person out. So there's two changes that we're going to make. First change is right here where it says hardness. So again, I've clicked where I can change the size of my eraser. Underneath the size, I have hardness here. I'm going to bring that all the way down to 0. And what turning your hardness down will do is basically make your eraser kind of fuzzy on the edge. It's softer. You won't cut that solid circle out. The other change that I want to make is right here, and it's the opacity of our eraser. So kind of in the same way that the opacity turned down like how strong your layer was, like how much of it you could see, turning down the opacity of your eraser will turn down how much it actually erases at a time. So I want to set this to 20% or so. Okay, so I'm pretty close there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin by working my way around the outside edge of my face. Now as I first start doing this, it doesn't really look like a lot's happening, but the more I kind of hack back and forth with it, the more you'll start to see that Mona actually begins blending in here to my picture of Bill Murray. Now, when I do this, I want to stay to the outside edge of the face. I'm trying to get rid of those solid lines. I want a nice smooth transition between Mona and Bill here. I have to avoid the eyebrows, eyes, nose, and mouth. Okay, if you start erasing them, then weird stuff starts happening to you. So you do not want to do that. Just make sure you stay to the outer edge of the face. And then as you do this, if you think, oh man, my face is a little bit too bright or a little bit too dark, you can always go back and continue messing with your adjustments like you had done earlier in this process. Okay, that's okay. It's all right to keep tinkering with it as you go. So again, that's kind of where I want you guys to get today. I want you to line the faces up, adjust the coloring and lighting, and then begin your blend.